Hey everybody, how's it going? Mike here from the Focus Garage, and in today's video we're going to be talking about my GTI, what's been going on with it, what the future plans are for it, and just my overall thoughts so far. Now, as you guys may have already known from following the channel, this is a 2016 GTI, so it's a Mark 7, and I bought it about a year ago with about 28,000 miles on it. As the car sits right now, we've got 42,000 miles on it, and a lot has changed from when the car was stock. I left it stock for almost just about a year, probably about 10 months or so, and then after the car's been, totally reliable for that time, and I've done my normal maintenance like the DSG service, oil changes, had some time to really give the car a good shakedown, check everything out, make sure everything is in good shape the way that it's supposed to be. After reading a bunch online and seeing on the forums, the way these cars respond to mods, I decided it was finally time for myself to go ahead and dig into it and see what I can make of this vehicle. So I was kind of cross-shopping around, seeing, what are popular mod paths that people do to this car, where are some of the, factory weak points that can be improved upon, and just overall what mods hold up, what don't, what are worth your money, what isn't. So, as the car sits right now, and this is one of those things that drives people crazy, including myself, it is currently a Stage 2 car. So, all that means is, in the GTI world, it's basically dependent on the tune. Not so much as the parts that are needed on it, because to run a Stage 2 tune on this car, all you really need is a downpipe. So what I've gone and done with this car is just the overall basic mods that we've done for power. Is we've got the stock intake with the snow guard removed. It's pretty much this little plastic grate that sits under the filter. You go ahead and remove that, and then you drop a high flow filter in there. I've got a AFE high flow filter in there. So I've got the snow guard removed with an AFE filter in the stock intake. I've got a catless downpipe from Depot Racing on there. And then I've got a ECU and a TCU tune through EQ Tuning. So Equilibrium Tuning is the company that has actually tuned this vehicle. And before I get into how the tune works and what I think about it, I'm going to have everything linked in the description down below. So definitely check out EQ Tuning, Equilibrium Tuning. They're great to work with. Ed over there, the main guy. Any questions you have, he'll be there to help you out and kind of, show you through the way there. But after a ton of research, I was kind of seeing what tunes people like, what they don't like. And with the Mark 7, there's so many different avenues you can go through for tuning this vehicle. A lot of people will run like a JB4, which is a piggyback. So you're pretty much still running the stock computer tune, but you're tricking the ECU into giving it more boost and more timing by piggybacking on sensors. So it's changing the way the vehicle's metering boost, it's changing the way the vehicle's metering air, and it's tricking the car into adding more fueling, more everything like that. The benefit with that is that you're not flashing the car, so if you do ever have to go to the dealership for warranty work or repair work, they're never going to be able to tell as long as you remove that unit. However, the downside is it's not really the most safe thing, and you're not going to get the same kind of gains as if you're actually tuning the car. So if you want to flash the ECU, there's a couple different ways to do it. You can go to one of those APR installers where they'll plug in, they'll flash, but then you're kind of at their mercy. You can't really monitor anything with that unless you've got VADCOM or some other kind of tool to diagnose that and monitor the car. And then you can't really flash back stock without going back to there. So that's APR. Unitronic and a couple other brands also have their own kind of proprietary, I think Integrated Engineering is the other one there. Again, they have a do-it-at-home, do-it-yourself flash mechanism. So you load some software on your computer, then you go ahead and you flash at the car there, and then you can have the ability to change the tune as you want, flash back to stock and everything like that, and kind of change the tunes based on the mods, which is nice. But coming from the ST world, I've been exposed to the Cobb access port, and that is a fantastic device, and that is the route that I went. The biggest reason I like the access port is, one, if you are leaving it in the vehicle, you can monitor a ton of things real time. It's very easy to data log on the vehicle, and flashing between different tunes and flashing back to stock is seamless, easy, no computers required. You just plug in the access port to the OBD2 port, and before you know it, bam, you've got the tune flash and you're ready to go. So I decided to go with an access port, and then through my research, and feel free to do your own, but I strongly, in the highest regards, recommend EQ Tuning. I landed on them to tune this vehicle. So, I reached out to them, asked a couple basic questions about fueling, what do you guys recommend, everything like that. And the one thing that you may notice right now that I didn't say I'm running is an intercooler. On these Volkswagens, the stock intercooler is a little more stout than what you would see on some other turbocharged vehicles like a Focus ST, a Subaru WRX. Upgrading the intercooler isn't as necessary when you're pushing, the stock turbo. As it is on those other vehicles. So my kind of plan of action here with it was to leave the stock intercooler till I decide to go ahead and step up to a bigger turbo. Now, which turbo I'm going to go with? Because I'm again, I over research everything. I'm thinking of going with the Equilibrium tunings setup. So at first I was looking at IS38 turbos for what you get with it, but for just a little bit more money, EQ sells a hybrid IS38, and they even offer with a larger housing for a little bit more PSI there. So it would be between their IS38 hybrid or their XL turbo there for what I go with. And again, that'll be coming in the future. It's not on the car now, but I wanted to see how the car feels stock to where it's at now. So now that I've got the ECU tune and the trans tune, this car is absolutely transformed. I can't even put it into words. Like, it's crazy the amount of power that you can pick up in these Mark 7s with just a pipe and some bolt on and tuning. It's crazy. So I mean, roughly, I think stock these cars make, and again, it's going to vary depending on where you look, but they make anywhere from like 210 to 225, 230 at the wheels. Volkswagen does underrate these cars. I think they rate them at like 220 at the crank stock. People make that at the wheels. But when you go ahead and you run this stage 2 tune, you end up making anywhere from 300 to like 315 to 320 wheel horsepower, and that's just on pump 93 octane. If I wanted to go ahead and upgrade the high pressure fuel pump and run an E30 mix or even an E85 mix, I could do that, and I've seen people push 330 wheel or even a little bit more than that out of the stock turbo on this car. And for those of you that don't know, the GTI runs a IS20 turbo for the stock turbo. So you've got the ability, to make about 310-ish wheel horsepower and almost 400 wheel torque with the stock turbo. Now, in a car that weighs, around 3,000 pounds or so, give or take, depending on your trim level and everything like that, it's really, really good power, especially coming from where the car was stock to where it's at now. It's an absolute different car. I mean, if you rode in this car stock, bone stock the way I owned it for almost a year, and then you rode it now, and you didn't know, that it was the same car, it feels totally different. It absolutely has exceeded my expectations. And for a little bit of background on me, I've owned everything from, C5 Z06 Corvette that made almost, I guess around 440 wheel horsepower to, a slow Mazda Miata that probably didn't even make 90 wheel horsepower. So, I felt like a vast difference of power there between different cars. This has exceeded my expectations. I was reading online, the kind of power that these cars can make with bolt-ons and mods, but blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind. So, like, my biggest thing was now, if I'm making around 315, 320 wheel horsepower, with the turbo that I want to go with, I have the ability to safely make up to around 430 to 440 wheel horsepower on this car with pump gas. As long as I take care of the fueling mods like the the high pressure pump, I can run 93 octane fuel and make around 430 to 440 wheel horsepower. So again, for the cost of a bigger turbo, the associated parts with that, and then an intercooler, I could pick up, bolt on another 100 wheel horsepower to this car and run relatively safely with it. So again, like, if you're looking to get into modding, these cars, it's insane. Like, what you pick up is crazy, and what you can, run with I'm sorry, I'm doing the air quotes like crazy in this one, but what the car can compete with, especially if you're doing, some friendly rolling around, you're gonna be hanging with, stock V8 Mustangs and Camaros and Challengers and Chargers and stuff like that, with a car that is very unassuming. So that was one of the things that drew me to the GTI, is that it's not very boy racer, and to the average person, it looks like a regular Volkswagen Golf. Nobody knows anything different about it. I still have the stock catback exhaust, and because of the size of the downpipe on this car and the resonator and the catalytic converter in it, it does get quite a bit noisier from doing a catless downpipe on it compared to like when I had my Focus ST and I did a catless downpipe. If you stole the stock catback, the car's almost silent still. With this car, I don't even know if I have a desire to put a catback on it because of the way the noise is now. It's a perfect tone where if you get on it, car's got a little bit of a rasp, a little bit of growl, makes some noise, but cruising around in 6th gear, unless you're above 80, car's totally silent. You almost can't even tell anything's done to it. So that's another thing too. I've got the DSG here. So if you have a manual transmission GTI, you probably have to do a clutch if you want to do a stage 2 tune on the vehicle. From what I've been seeing with people, if you have a stage 2 tune and you're making that higher torque, higher horsepower, your clutch will start to slip. So that is another thing of the DSG versus the manual transmission GTI there is cost of mods and cost of making the power is, with a DSG car, you got to spend the money to get a tune on the trans, otherwise you're not really making the most out of the new power band and the added power, because you've got to change the clamping force of the clutch, and you can't do that without a DSG tune. But on the flip side of that, you've got to pay for the tune. But if you've got a manual GTI, you've also got to upgrade the clutch. Yeah, there's no tune for that, but then you've got to put a clutch in the car. So, I mean, give or take however you want. Obviously, I won't get into the whole DSG versus manual thing. That's up to you guys. I bought this car to daily, to drive in traffic and stuff like that. I've got motorcycles if I want to deal with, having a manual transmission, and I do plan to pick up an additional vehicle in the future, which will have a manual transmission for something that I don't have to drive every single day in traffic. That being said, it is mid-April, mid to late April at the time of releasing this video. I've had the parts on the car now since, I think, late December or early January. The car has had zero issues. I drive the car pretty aggressively. I put it through its paces, but I do make sure that, I change the oil regularly. I'm always putting top tier 93 octane fuel in the car. And again, similar to with all turbocharged cars, you take the right precautions. So don't beat on the car when your oil is cold. Don't lug it in, fifth and sixth gear and try and make, your 25, 30 PSI. Car's not going to like that. Don't do that. Boost in your lower gears. Make sure the car is in its power band. Make sure the oil's warmed up. Make sure you're using good gas. All those typical turbocharged direct injection things that have applied that Andre and I have talked about in the Focus ST, Fiesta ST videos. Same stuff applies to the GTI. It is no different here. With all that being said, I do plan to line up with Andre's car. Yes, he's making closer to 400 wheel horsepower where I'm in the mid to lower 300s, but this car is a little bit lighter than his, I believe, and we're making about similar torque, and I've got the DSG here. So I think it'd be an interesting matchup to see these cars from a dig and to see these cars from a roll to see kind of how they compare to one another. I absolutely have loved this car in the time that I've owned it. I think it's the perfect balance between something that's very comfortable to drive, but still sporty enough and handles well to drive. As you can see, we've got the summer setup back on the car here. Weather hasn't really been cooperating. We get like 60, 70 degree days, and then we get snow a couple days later. So it's a real trade-off in between there as far as, what's going on with the seasons. We really can't expect nice weather till May anyways, and with everything going on in the world right now, who knows what the automotive landscape is going to look like as far as events. I wanted to get this car out there in some autocrosses this year. I wanted to get this car out there in some road course events. I even wanted to take it through a drag strip just to see, what kind of time it can put down versus what I was putting down in my ST. We'll see. When stuff opens back up, when the world returns to normal, we'll get back to that stuff there and we'll just kind of see what happens with it. But overall, I highly recommend Equilibrium Tuning. They've done an amazing job with this car, and I highly recommend the Mark 7. This car has been an absolute blast. The trim that I've got here, and not selling an elitist because I hate when people do this, but it's the Autobahn, and I've got all the tech on this car too. So like you're not left with like a stripped down economy hopped up car. I mean, I've got the blind spot monitoring, I've got the adaptive cruise control. You've got Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, backup camera, LED lighting, all that stuff. It's a premium feeling car, and a car that is also fun, sporty to drive. And also, even with these mods and the power that's making, I can still get close to 30 miles per gallon if I'm not ripping on the car. And even if I am ripping on it, I'm still getting 24, 25 miles per gallon on 93 octane fuel. So again, like every time I go through my vehicular ADD and I think about getting rid of this car and getting something else, the longer I have this car, the bigger a place it cements in my ownership, because it just does so many different things so well. And when I look at replacing it, there's always some stuff I'm going to be losing for what I'm going to be gaining, So if I get something else, it might be bigger, so it's not going to handle as well. It's not going to be as flickable, as tossable. Yeah, I'll have more power, but it's going to get worse gas mileage. It's going to be more to insure. Car payment will be higher. Sticker price will be higher. So like, this GTI, in the time that I've owned it so far, has really been a sweet spot of a vehicle for me. I strongly recommend it to anybody that's been considering one of these, and even if you haven't been considering one of these, check them out. They're fantastic cars, and they just get cheaper and cheaper the longer they've been out. So they're still making the Mark 7.5. The Mark 8's coming soon, but you can get these as old as a 2015 now. But I do recommend get the 2016s. That's when they added the Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. I heard some 2015 models may have turbo issues as well. So 2016 and up, but you can find these cheap now. I've seen them in the low teens now, to, with some average-ish miles on them. You can still find some lower mile, gently used ones for upper teens. But again, no real reason unless you want that new car feeling of spending the 30K plus for a nicely optioned one. You do have the option now with all these dealerships doing the deferred payments and the 0 interest for 72 or 84 months. So now would be a good time to buy one new if you wanted to, but these things can be had for, you know, a real steal of a price if you're entertaining the used market. I don't want to run this on too long. I just kind of wanted to give you guys an update of what I've been doing with this car. So she's stage 2 now. We got a downpipe, we got an ECU tune, we got a DSG tune. Summer wheels are back on it. We're going to be adding coilovers in the near future. Probably some more aesthetic mods like a front lip, the rear aerofab spoiler I like, and then an intercooler as well. We'll probably have all that done by the end of the season with a big turbo as well by then. So be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I know a lot of you guys out there are fans of us originally from the Focus ST community, so it's going to be a fun little feud to have this car pitted up against Anders Focus ST to really see kind of where things fall into place. If you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments down below. I love hearing your feedback, and I love sharing my opinion, even though nobody cares to hear it. This is Mike from the Focus Garage signing off, and I'll catch you guys in the next